Happy New Year's 2016. Grab a blanket, turn off your lights, and hope you all have a spooky new year. New Year's Eve. I've been meaning to write this story down on this website for a while now. If anyone has read my story about the night of the eclipse in August, then you should know that this is just a continuation of events that's been happening in the trailer I live in. Another thing I should mention is that the only times there have been a lot of activity at all were on the night of the eclipse and on New Year's Eve. It started at about dinner time when my boyfriend and I were cleaning up and getting ready to have people over. We kept losing things, then finding them right back in the same place a few minutes later. We thought we were just imagining it, but it kept happening over and over. It seemed like every time we needed something, it would disappear. After finally getting everything cleaned, my friend Carson arrived. He, my boyfriend, and I were sitting there watching TV, talking about nothing in particular when my boyfriend said something, and an unknown man's voice said, "Right?" in return. The three of us were so confused we looked everywhere to see if our roommates had come home, but no one was there. We told them about it later, and they told us they had been hearing the same thing since the night of the eclipse. A while later, I went to the bathroom, and I heard a loud cough behind my ear as I was washing my hands. All the hairs on my neck stood up, and I ran out of there. No one there believed me until the rest of our guests showed up. I was drinking after that, and so was everyone else except for two designated drivers. One got there before the other, and they both said they heard a cough when they were in the bathroom. They didn't know that I had heard it or that each other had heard it either, so it's not hard to tell why everyone believed me after that. Nothing happened to me the rest of the night. But in the morning, when I was sobered up as well as everyone else, I heard the cough again. Nothing has happened since though. I'm getting really worried about holidays and whatnot because it seems that it is the only time anything really happens around here. Not a happy New Year's. So this is the story I've been waiting to post. Since the submission page has been closed for a while, I believe it may tie in with all my previous stories, but I'm not sure. Some input would be wonderful. And yes, I should have posted this one first. It probably would have been smarter, but it's hard to share without feeling ridiculous. It started during the week of New Year's, 2008. I was in St. Helens, staying at my friend's mom's house for a week, prior to New Year's Eve, as we were going to celebrate down there, and my friend and I were having a pretty good time, just going off to parties and hanging out with some other friends. I don't know if anyone's really heard of St. Helens before or been there, but there's a cemetery called Masonic upon the hill that overlooks the rock quarry there, and people frequent it for its high volume of paranormal activity. We were such people. Feeling brave, we went there 3 times during our stay. Both times we were sober, and we did get our fill of activity. Needless to say, we got our thrills, and by the time New Year's Eve came around, we were ready to just hang out at Allie's house and relax. We played a few card games, chatted with her little sister, and didn't do much of anything. That is, until the idea was brought up of Ouija boards. After some debate, we thought giving one a shot would be fun. Stupid, we know. So I looked up how to make one at home. I drew up a rather nice looking one, and we set the mood to start. Candles, lights off, all of that. After about 15 minutes of getting nothing, we were ready to call it quits. And we would have if the planchette didn't start to move. Thinking one of us was playing a joke, we asked the routine questions. What's your name? How old are you? Etc. What we got wasn't very joking. A little girl was speaking to us. Her name was Mary. She was 7 years old and had died quite some time ago. Not in the house though, as it was a newly built house. Getting a little freaked, we stopped. We closed the ceremony and tried to take our minds off of it. Not easy though, because we heard footsteps and a door slam upstairs. Unnerved, we decided to take a walk around the neighborhood. It was pretty late, so we strolled quietly. As we walked, barely speaking, I looked casually around at the houses lining the street. I stopped when the sight of what looked like an animal moving in and out of some hedges caught my eye. I asked Allie if she saw that, and she had. We stood and stared for a few seconds, trying to see what it was. As our eyes adjusted, though, we could see that it was in fact the shadow of what looked like an animal. But as it moved towards the lighted driveway, it changed shape, blending away with the light. We were terrified, and as calmly as we could to avoid a scene, we turned heel and started back home. Allie stopped midway with her head down, and I asked, what was wrong? All she did was grin at me with a look that is not hers. She's a sweet person I've known for a while, and the look in her eyes was malicious. I asked her if she was okay, to which she responded, I'm fine. I like to be out. Do you believe in ghosts? I knew there was something wrong then. As my best friend, she knew I was into all things paranormal. I told her to stop messing around. I was cold, but her only response was a giddy little laugh. Now I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's true. And the events that happened next are sort of a blur, even to this day. The streetlight we were under went out. Allie seemed to go back to normal, but complained of an extreme headache. We got to the house, and this is where it gets blurry. The bits and pieces I remember are Allie having a few more of these episodes. She reports, I did the same thing. I don't remember. My memory of the night seems to have chunks missing from it, and so does Allie's. We woke up the next morning with pounding headaches and the feeling of being physically spent. Allie says she remembers feeling scared and helpless. I don't remember any feeling but confusion and ominous fear when Allie would turn weird. We talked a little of that night afterwards, me only sharing it with a few people, and Allie never sharing it with anyone to my knowledge. A wedge formed between us, and although we're civil today, Allie has since relocated from her hometown with her fiancé. I've also moved somewhere else with my family. It is our belief that the spirit we contacted using the Ouija board possessed us. Going from one of us to the other, we're not sure. I know it must sound phony, but I swear on my life that I am telling the truth. All I know for sure is that there are questions about what happened that need answers, and I'm finally seeking them out. Strange hand at the window. I've always felt there's a lot of paranormal occurrences happening in and around the property that my family and I live at. Even so, it terrifies me every time whenever something unusual happens. Both my sister and I were chatting together in the kitchen one afternoon. It was several days ago. It was New Year's Eve. I was washing up the dishes from lunch earlier when she froze and pointed at the window, saying, "Oh my God, what's that?" I turned and saw a pale, yellowish hand with very long, almost alien-like fingers at the corner of the kitchen window. Its fingers were moving slowly and fluidly, as if beckoning us to come outside. It was not attached to an arm. Both of us were terrified, and I immediately went to the back door to check if someone was playing a trick on us. I didn't see anything, but one of my cats bolted inside, clearly frightened of something. I closed the back door firmly and went back into the kitchen. Not long afterwards, the back door opened on its own again, with a creaky noise, and my sister and I freaked out. I rushed to close it again. In hindsight, it probably wasn't a good idea to move to the back door straight away, in case something dangerous did happen. But I wasn't really thinking at the time. Whatever was there, however, had found an escape route beyond my comprehension, as it is impossible to move away to the left, as there is a locked gate there. As for moving to the right, if somebody was playing tricks, we would have heard them run off along the concrete outside our back door, where they would have to have been standing in order to position the hand where it was seen. I'm sorry if this is a bit confusing to follow, but cutting to the point. Both of us had seen it, so I know I wasn't hallucinating. It looked solid, yet at the same time, otherworldly. I can't explain it any better than that. When we both told Mom about the hand later that night, she was surprised. She said she felt something watching her in the backyard the other night when she was looking for the cat. And the same night we had told her she went to prepare rice cakes for New Year's a couple hours before midnight and stopped all of a sudden. She told me that she felt like we were all being watched through the kitchen window from outside. Unfortunately, the light bulb outside doesn't work anymore, so we can't see outside from the indoors during the night. I am wondering what it is trying to tell us. I know what I saw, and the fact that my sister saw it too strengthens my belief that something is trying to grab our attention for sure. Strange whispers. As a young child, I've always been somewhat sensitive to otherworldly beings. I've seen several ghosts in my old house when I was a child that I still remember to this day. There were times that I would walk into an old house and immediately got a bad feeling inside. I was told later that the house was haunted. I came to terms with the fact that I could see or feel things that other people can't, but I never really talked about it to anyone. Bear in mind, I am a healthy, emotionally sound person. As I grew older, I never saw or heard any ghosts, and I figured I wouldn't ever again. I always thought children had some ability to see or hear spirits due to their openness and innocent nature. Now flash forward about 20 years later. I was hanging out with some old friends that rented an apartment in the city. It seemed as though they are happy with the place and paid a decent price for the apartment. The apartment is old, but in decent overall shape. One night, when I was having dinner with them, my friend's husband happened to mention that something in the apartment kept waking him up during the night. He did not seem happy, nor did he want to talk about the reason why. I didn't push him to talk about it, and didn't think much of it. A few weeks later, I went to spend New Year's Eve with them and stayed until 2 a.m. After dinner and DVDs, my back was starting to bother me. My friends went into their game room to set up a new game, and I asked if I could lay on their living room couch and relax for a moment. They said that was fine, went to the game room and closed the door. As I laid there for a few minutes, I was thinking about school, and I thought I heard whispering. My friends were in the next room with the door closed, and I figured it was them. Then a few minutes later, I heard the whispering again. It was much louder and clearer, as if someone was whispering right into my ear. The voice sounded like a man's, but speaking in a fast and hurried manner. I sat up and looked around, but no one was there. My friends were talking loudly in the other room, so clearly the whispering did not come from them. I found myself saying, "I know someone is in here, and I'm not afraid of you." I left the living room and joined my friends in the game room. I've not told my friends about this, and I do not want to worry them. I heard someone next to me, but I could not make out what the person said. Any thoughts? New Year's visit. I've always believed that dreams are a bridge for the living and the departed to connect. I've grown up with stories by my family about our deceased loved ones who wish to convey a parting message, giving warnings, and sometimes simply checking up on the people they have left behind. This particular dream is still somewhat fresh in my mind, and by far the most emotional one I have encountered. For the most of last year, my grandfather had been suffering greatly from cancer, which was quite difficult for my whole family to swallow. Nonetheless, we kept ourselves prepared for the worst, and the worst did come when he passed away just before Christmas. His passing was quiet, peaceful, and when I came home that evening, nothing felt weird. It was just like that. He was gone, and we can't feel his presence anywhere in the house. Not in his belongings, not in his room, not even in the spots in the house where he frequently visited. To say the least, I found myself sad because of it. You know, when you wish he'd at least manifest for a final goodbye, but he didn't. But then on the morning of New Year's Day, I had a dream. I was conversing with a couple of relatives, and they called me, saying someone came to visit. I saw my grandfather climbing up the stairs to the living room, and he smiled at me. He was wearing white and looked like he gained weight. I took it as a sign that he's definitely better. He reached for his breast pocket and he handed me money, and he said it was for me, a gift for the holidays. I resisted the urge to hug him because I know the dam will surely break. We went about the house, showing him the changes my mom did in his bedroom, and he said he was satisfied with it. He then proceeded to grab a couple of belongings for himself and for Grandma, who passed on 12 years prior, and told me that she had sent him here in the first place. At that point, I'd been physically heaving from the emotions welled up, and eventually I woke up crying my eyes off for a good 10 minutes. The wind in my room was cold and comforting, and the gray overcast in the middle of the day calmed me down a bit. I'm just happy he found peace, and wherever he is, I know he's breathing freely. No more oxygen tanks, and no more pain. Thanks for reading.